A full state economic forecast is due at month's end. Any surplus dollars reflected in that report will be used to repay state IOUs to schools. While the city of Bemidji is looking at potential changes to its taproom ordinance. The potential ordinance would have a big impact on microbreweries. Lacey Monteleone joins us live in the studio with how this ordinance on local breweries could impact one local business. Lacey?
Well, Dennis, Bemidji Brewing Company began brewing beer out of Harmony Food Co-op's community kitchen just last October. If the new ordinance is adopted, they could potentially expand their business, and they say that's not just good for them, it's good for Bemidji. The founders of Bemidji Brewing Company have been brewing their ideas for quite some time.
I started home brewing while I was in college and here at BSU, and that was about 9 years ago.
And after all that time, they're now getting their ideas off the ground.
The operations here are pretty small, and so this is kind of a way for us to be an actual operating brewery and have our beer on tap here in town.
Currently, this microbrewery is only able to sell their beer through other businesses in town, but that may soon be a thing of the past with an ordinance change that could allow them to sell growlers.
A growler is 64 ounces of beer, and it's typically in a glass jar. This is very commonplace amongst craft breweries all across the nation. And what it is it's a chance for folks to come into the brewery right where the beer is made and get fresh beer.
And potentially they could soon have their own tap room.
Tap room will be kind of a cultural component where people will be able to come in, learn about beer. The focus is really about education, about the connection between the end result and the agrarian roots of beer.
The founders say even though they're only selling their beer at this location with limited space, it's still hard to keep up with demand.
We've got to move our equipment in. We lease a little small space from them where we keep our fermenters.
But to these brewers, the most important thing to getting their business to that next step is finding out what locals think of their product. And so far, it's been a hit.
We've had great response just from people coming up to talk to us and saying they really like our products. And at the scale we're at right now, being so small, it's nice to be able to put out a bunch of different styles.
And with just a pint of hard work, they're hoping they can have an even bigger impact. Now, if the ordinance does move forward, Bemidji Brewing Company would potentially only be able to have one tap room that they say would be located in Bemidji, but they would also be able to sell their beer at other establishments throughout the state. Dennis?
If the city does change the ordinance, Lacey, do we have any idea when Bemidji Brewing Company may begin an expansion possibly?
Not an exact date, but for Bemidji Brewing Company to expand, it would still require quite a bit of investment on their part. However, the owners do say they hope to eventually sell their beer throughout Minnesota, so they definitely have a lot of big plans ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, Lacey, for that live report tonight from our studio. The Bemidji City Council will have its first reading of the ordinance on February 19th at 7 p.m.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.